Right, a warm welcome to everybody for the second Sunday show. First of all, I've got to say thank you for all the fantastic feedback we had on content last time. That was wonderful. Our aim is to provide you with several things. Number one, accurate information, a variety of areas we're going to cover between now and Christmas, experts each time, and tips that you can actually go and use tomorrow if possible. Today we've got a great friend of mine, Fiona Shakeela Burns. She's going to tell you all about her inspirational story on how she beat cancer not once but twice, but also how she discovered a missing element. And a missing element I think is terribly important. It's a missing element that sort of clinched her survival probably more than 15 years ago. So what I would say is one thing. Good morning, Fiona. How are you?
Hi, Chris.
Now, how's life in Bristol today?
It's actually sunny in Bristol. It's a beautiful day. It's bank holiday weekend. Yeah,
I've been clipping my turkey wings this morning. Not my wings, my turkey's wings this morning.
Oh.
Apparently that's what I was supposed to do. I've got a male turkey sitting on the eggs, but apparently that's perfectly normal. Right, I've got a bundle of questions for you, so we'll see how it goes from all our readers. I'm going to start off with the question before we get going. How important...
Can I just say thank you very much for having me on the show, Chris?
Oh, it's a pleasure.
Yeah.
It's a pleasure. It's meant to be a
chat. For all that you do for Cancer Active, all of your dedication and everything that you provide. It's amazing. Oh, your Icon magazine as well. All of it.
Well, it's all right. We try, don't we? We try between us. You've got cancer, you can, and so we just try to keep everybody on the straight and narrow and beating their cancer. Right, I've got a question from Susie Whitehead Poynton in Lancashire.
Okay.
And she says, how important is it to have a positive attitude when coping with cancer?
So that's a really good question. I'd say it's really, really important. And to allow yourself to have days when you don't feel positive at all. That's also really important. So it's about maintaining optimism, hope, and a belief in your recovery, and at the same time making space for the days when you feel utter despair and sadness and anger and all of the rest of it. So that's all part of the package.
Do you think it's the patient's job to be positive? I mean, I always do PPs with people, and like last week I got a husband and his wife, and the husband's got cancer, and I said, look, my job's to be thorough, your job's to be determined, it's your wife's job to be positive. And one of the things I hate most is when the nurse goes up to the patient and says, now be positive, dear, because that's actually the nurse's job. Don't you think that it's almost impossible to be positive all the time?
I think being told to be positive is really annoying. So.
Yes, I agree. Exactly.
I never say it to anybody. I wouldn't say it to anybody, really.
Yeah, but I mean, you can't be positive all the time. But at the end of the day, I think what we're talking about today is I always love the Henry Ford quote, which was, whether you think you can or whether you think you can't, you're usually right. I think that's that's
absolutely true. That is absolutely 100% true. Yes.
All right, I've got another question from Leslie Newton in London. Okay. Do you have to believe you will heal in order to heal?
That's a good question. I would say yes, you do. I would say you have to hold open a window of possibility that you can heal. So it doesn't mean that you have to I believe, you don't have, it's not like that. It's like, maybe I can heal. So when the doctor says to you, looks you in the face as he did with me and says, palliative care for you only, you'll be dead in a few months. You've got to then open the window and go, is that the whole truth? Is it possible that I could actually heal? That's all that's required, really, is an opening.
Okay, good. All right, I'm going to look back on your first cancer. So there you were, sort of 11 or 12, just started secondary school. Mm-hmm. And this is really a sort of question of mine for all those parents out there. So you got a leukemia, but actually it was a tumour, and when they went in to cut the tumour out, they found a sarcoma sort of underneath.
That's
Now,
right. I had plasma cell leukemia and sarcoma at the same time when I was 11 years old.
right. Well, for all the parents out there, and I've been a parent of a child who had cancer, although she's a bit older than you were at the time. What's it like, if you can remember?
I can remember it so
Like having a
clearly.
child with cancer.
What's it like being a child with cancer?
Oh, yeah,
Well,
with it being a child with cancer. I mean, we need to learn from this, I think, as mums and dads.
I mean, I remember really clearly when my mum was taken out of the room, and that's when she was told I had cancer. And she then came back in, sat down and read me a story. And while she was out the room, I had the thought to myself, what if they're telling her something really awful? And when she came back in, she had this right fee, a thing about, and I thought, there's something. And then my dad came over that day, took her out for a meal, and I was left behind in bed. I knew, because I was in the hospital at this point, I'd had the surgery, and that's when they diagnosed me. I knew that there was something seriously wrong, but I felt that they weren't telling me what it was. And eventually, when I of course asked the question, is there a diagnosis? What is it? They told me, your disease has such a long name that we can't pronounce it. And I, as an 11-year-old, I accepted that. I actually accepted that. And I do think that they helped me by not giving me the word cancer, because as we know, cancer is such a charged word that they spared me from that word. And I think that was a really good thing. So
I always used to worry that, I used to think, what happens when Catherine sort of wakes up at 4 o'clock in the morning in a cold sweat thinking I'm going to die? I mean, did you have those sorts of moments?
I did. Yeah, I remember thinking, I might go to sleep and I might not wake up in the morning. I remember thinking that. And I remember going through, I had quite a lot of fear. And I kind of felt like it wasn't really taken serious. My parents didn't know how to deal with my fear. So their way of dealing with my fear was by distracting me, reading me stories, entertaining me. But I think, it would have been, looking back, it would have been amazing if there'd been some kind of place where I could discuss my fears of death. And there wasn't anything like that in those days.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
Good point. What's you then went to see Norman Eddy in Manchester.
Yeah. So when I got my diagnosis, which was plasma cell leukemia and sarcoma, they weren't sure which sarcoma it was. They actually wrote on my notes Kaposi's sarcoma, but I don't think they really were clear. And they said, they gave me oral chemotherapy, steroids, and said, this will prolong her life, but it won't save her. So my parents gave me those medications for 1 week. And then all the time in that week, they were looking for somebody. They were looking for somebody to help. And then my sister, who sadly died of cancer much later, she was working for The Guardian in London. And she found the name of Mr. Eddy, who was this naturopath in Manchester, at the same time that my mum was told about his name at the same time. So we kind of thought, okay, there's a coincidence here. I think it's really worth paying attention to coincidences when you're on a healing journey, or when you're on any journey. But it's like life is trying to show us things, and if it comes more than once, then definitely pay attention.
So he put you onto Gerson, did he?
He did. He basically.
Did your mum and dad know about Gerson before it or not?
No. They'd had bad experience with the medical profession. My dad feels both of his parents were killed by doctors, and my mum had bad experience with her father being not diagnosed properly. And then, our families had bad experiences. So for that reason, my mum and dad had pretty much very little faith in doctors anyway. So it wasn't that hard a wrench for them to let go of them, especially when they said they couldn't heal me. And my mum was very open-minded. My mum was into reflexology and massage, and she was kind of open. My dad wasn't at all at that point, but he became open because he and my mum worked really well as a team. And my mum was highly intuitive, and he used to be guided by her. He used to allow her to kind of tune in and she was very wise. He's very wise to do that. So
Mum and Dad did all the
together.
juicing. Mum and Dad did all the juicing and the coffee enemas, did they?
Yeah, so they got the juicing together. They actually hired someone as well. They had a girl to come in to help with juicing, which I think helped my mum massively. We were lucky because by that time in my life, my mum and my dad had a quite successful business, so at least they had some resources, which was really helpful, that they could pay someone to come in and help with the juicing. And then I got paid to drink my juices, and I got paid to do my coffee enemas. So I tell you what, that's a very, very intelligent thing to do.
There are a few other things with Gerson, aren't there? A few sort of weird supplements even. And
yes, I was on all the supplements apart from the liver. I wasn't on the carbs liver, but I was on everything else. And I had a salt-free, sugar-free, processed food-free diet with lots of fruits and vegetables. And the aim was to have, I had 6 juices a day. At that time I was given the instruction of having 6 juices a day, and I think I was doing 1 coffee enema, but it might have been 2 to start with.
Are you was there a turning point in that cancer for you? Was there something that happened, or you felt, oh, I'm changing?
Do you know what, pretty much as soon as I started doing Gerson, I mean, I was a kid that hated vegetables. I loved things like sweet. I liked crisps and sweets and burgers and lemonade, and so getting me to do the Gerson therapy was it was a massive thing. It was a complete change. But my parents did it by telling me that if I did it, I would get better. So they believed in it. First of all, they read the book. They read the 50 cases of recovery.
So it was their beliefs.
Their beliefs. That's it. So when you're guiding a child, it has to be the parents' belief and the parents' vision of their combined vision for my health kind of carries the child along.
But for you, was there a moment when you thought, wow, I feel so much better?
Yeah. I mean, after about 6 weeks, I remember just kind of thinking, God, I've got energy again. I was ready to I wanted to do handstands. I remember running up and down stairs. Up until that point, I'd had no energy. I'd been lethargic, lying around, just no energy and just depressed. And I started to feel like this lightness. And I remember I had a dream one night that I was running. I was like running through the jungle, like through the rivers and just over the trees. And I was sort of flying. And I told my mum in the morning about my dream. And she said, oh, Fee, that means you're getting better. So, yeah, so maybe that was the turning point.
I remember Gearin Tosh, actually, who wrote the book Living Proof, and he actually beat it within about a year. And he said that the doctors had actually tried to write down on his form that he never really had multiple myeloma in the first place. So did they do the same sort of thing with you?
Well, when I got better, they didn't deny that I'd been ill, but they wrote spontaneous remission on my notes.
Yeah,
which is crazy because I always think it's about as spontaneous as finding yourself at the top of Mount Everest.
It's a miracle, yeah.
So like, oh, here I am. I accidentally climbed a mountain. It's like,
yeah. So
it's spontaneous. That is hard work. Yeah.
So that was one chapter in your life, and you moved forward through school, and you went off to medical herbalism. Yeah.
Well, that sort of showed me that I've always been interested in healing my whole life. Since that moment, since that recovery, that inspired me. And then when I left school, I didn't know what to do, so I went to be a nurse, and I did that for 2 years, and then I didn't finish the training. I ended up watching a program about herbal medicine, 2 medical herbalists, the McIntyres, and I watched it, and I was so inspired. I thought, oh my God, that's exactly what I want to do in my life. So I started doing all the qualifications, because you needed to have A-level chemistry and biology in order to get on the course. So I had to do this home study, because I hadn't got really any qualifications when I left school. I hadn't really applied myself. But then I suddenly had a reason to, and then I managed to get the qualifications to do the course, and then I did the course. It was a 4-year full-time course, and I loved it. I absolutely loved it. So that kind of And then that was, I just got more and more interested in healing, and I started learning about other types of healing, craniosacral therapy, and I've always learnt the things. So whatever things have worked on me, they're the things I've studied. So yeah, and then I was healthy for a long time. And
keep it going, Fiona. Keep it going, Fiona, because I have this theory that you never stop learning. If you've got an inquiry mind, it keeps you alive a long time.
Yeah, I mean, I'm always learning still now. I love learning about things, and I.
So you thought you got over this big chapter in your life?
Yeah, well, I had. I mean, I never looked back. I never had any. Strangely, I never had any follow-up tests. Really weird in a way. I never had any follow-up tests for leukemia. I never had any. I was just like, I better move on. Just move on. And I never looked back. And it wasn't actually until I was 17 that my parents told me that I'd had cancer. They hadn't given me the word, but it was because I'd started to stay out. I'd been out all night on my 17th birthday, and they didn't know where I was. And then they got really worried, and I was smoking, I was drinking and eating rubbish, and they thought, oh my God, she's going to get ill again because she's just not looking after herself. So they tried to shock me into good behaviour by telling me that I'd had cancer, and it was really, really shocking, actually. And
so how long in the herb? Now you're a herbalist. How long before you got the next one? Suddenly this next one arrived.
Yeah. Okay. So I've been a herbalist. So I qualified as a herbalist in '92, and I then practiced as a herbalist for the next 14 years. But in that I also had a trip. I went to India for a couple of years, and I also learned some other things. And I've had a really interesting life. But I moved from London to Bristol, and it was after my mum died. So my mum died of cancer, and my sister had died. So in the meantime, so I was in my early 40s when my mum died, and I was in my mid 30s when my sister died. And I didn't cope with that loss. And that was the trigger for me, that the deep emotional upset and the lack of expression and the lack of somewhere to put that expression. I didn't know how. I mean, our culture is terrible at dealing with grief, and I dealt with my grief by just working. So I carried on seeing sick people, and I felt my energy just getting less and less and less, and I wasn't taking care of myself in the same way that I had been. I was living on my own, and I somehow I just started to sort of get flatter and flatter and flatter, and didn't know what to do about it. Anyway, it wasn't until I got my first diagnosis of cancer, which was a partially collapsed lung out of the blue on April the 19th, 2007. That was the first indication that there was something seriously wrong. So I went to the doctor, got an inhaler. Took me about 3 months to get diagnosed properly, but with the help of Google and asking the right questions, I then I asked for an ultrasound scan and a CA125 to check my ovaries. And that's when the ovarian tumours got discovered. And it turned out I had a 9x6 ovarian tumour, which engulfed both ovaries and
ovaries. Okay.
Yeah, like engulfed both ovaries and and some little tumours around that as well. And then, so that was found, but it later turned out that it was cervix cancer and that the ovarian tumour was actually the primary. So that was all very shocking. So I was 40.
Cervix cancer was the primary.
That was the primary, yeah. In fact, they said to me, they were never completely sure if I might have had two primaries, but they did a biopsy on the ovaries, on the cervix tumour, and that showed it was a primary. So,
yeah. So how long then before it went to the brain, or did you do some treatment straight away? What was the order of the program you did?
So I don't know how long it was in the brain for, because it wasn't discovered until January the following year. So it was August. The first symptom of cancer was April the 19th. August the 1st, I got diagnosed with, at that time, with this ovarian cancer. And then it was in November that I had a scan which showed I had a cervix tumour, and then they said that was the primary. And then it was in January, that following January, that the brain tumours were discovered. And that was because I'd actually lost my vision. My vision suddenly went funny. I couldn't see properly. And I had like flashing lights, and it's very scary. You know, I couldn't actually.
And they presumably were trying to give you chemo and radio and surgery and everything else.
So from the start, their initial thing was they wanted to do a hysterectomy and do chemo and radio. That was without even scanning me. They wanted to actually what he wanted to do was take an ovary out and see if that was the primary. I just felt really, I felt that my body was ill. I knew I was ill. You know, my strength was really, I was weak. I'd been feeling ill for a long time. I had, you know, breathlessness. I wasn't getting enough oxygen because my lung was partially collapsed because of the pleural effusions. So, you know, I was in really physically a very bad way. I thought if I start letting them operate on me and then giving me chemo, and I just knew I'd be dead. I knew it. So moving away from conventional medicine, it was just a kind of life preservation thing for me, really. It wasn't a case of, which shall I do? What it wasn't, it was just a case of, right, I've just got to move away from what I know will kill me and do what I need to do to survive.
How quickly did you get back onto Gerson? Presumably you went straight back onto Gerson.
Instantly. So as soon as I got diagnosed, I got the juicer out and I was juicing around, I was aiming for 10 juices a day. And I was managing really, I would do at least 6 every day, and 10 was a good day and 6 was an average day. And if I was ill and unable to, you know, sick, because when you do Gerson, all the toxins get released and you get like these periods like flare up when you feel ill, you know, you feel nauseous.
You were doing the coffee enemas and...
Yeah, I was doing coffee enemas as well. But even with that...
Did it take over your life though? I mean, you know,
takes over your life. Yeah. If you want a life, you've got to focus everything on it in order to heal. You've got to just do, when you're so seriously ill, you've got to do absolutely everything. You've got to, every single minute has to be spent on healing, you know. So no, you don't put anything in your mouth that you say, you know, I'd be like, is this going to nourish me? I would only ever put something in my mouth if it was going to nourish me. Apart from occasional slip up, but I was so like, I knew I was almost dead. You know, I could be dead in a few months. So I was like, look, if I don't really sort this out, I'll be dead. So I knew that. I didn't have time to play with.
I think it's one of the most important words in cancer treatment, the word nourishment. You get all these, you know, what diet are you on and so on. No one ever really thinks the word nourishment until they come up to me, you know. But I mean, it's a very, very important word because
it's really important. Yeah, you're right.
Body. Quite often people have built a body over a 10-year period that's conducive to cancer, and they now need to nourish their body, nourish their mind, and they, you know, the word nourishment is terribly onomatopoeic, I think.
Absolutely, it has to feel nourishing. And actually, how you do the Gerson, or how you take care of your body, is all important, because you can juice and do it in a really like, oh God, I've got to do my juice. Oh my God, it tastes disgusting. God, it's not fair. You know, my friends are going out and they're having fun. If you do it like that, you might as well not do the Gerson. You know,
there's never a temptation to put a glass of red wine in it or anything like that.
No, you can't. But I mean, what I did, I remember one Christmas. It was the Christmas following. So I've been to Germany, and I'll talk to you more about that in a minute if you want me to. So it's when I came back from Germany, and I had a break between going back again. And I remember I had half a glass of wine for Christmas on Christmas Day and 1 chocolate, and that was me pushing the boat out, you know. Yeah. And then the day I got diagnosed with brain tumours, I went and I thought, right, I need comfort. I really do. So I went and bought a lovely bottle of organic red wine and a Waitrose. I love Indian food. It's my favourite. So I bought an Indian like ready meal sort of thing, you know, a bit better than ready meal. But it was like, anyway, that's what I did. I went home, I said, that's what I'm having. And I ate my meal and I invited my friend over and I had a glass of wine with her. And I had one glass and I gave her the bottle. I said, take it away because I'm not going to have any more now. That's it. And, you know, so it's like that. It was, so twice I had alcohol in that whole time, and it was very consciously done. And it's
so you were doing
fun.
no orthodox treatments, and you went to Germany. I've got Thomas Lodi, I think, in a few weeks' time, talking about clinics. Right. But he's like the king of IPT, insulin therapy in America. He was.
Fantastic.
But
he's got a clinic in America.
You did IPT. Yeah. Do they make a difference? Is it money well?
I was talking at the same time.
Sorry, if you did IPT, you did hypothermia in Germany, did it make a difference? Was it money well spent?
What, the IPT?
Well, going to a German clinic, for example.
I think it was really money well spent. I mean, one of the things for me was that when I got to Germany, what I knew at that point was that the cervix tumour had been discovered, and my tummy was full of fluid and my lung was full of fluid. So whereas initially I seemed to be able to make an impact on the lung, at one point I managed to drain the lung myself, but then it had come back and I was full of fluid. So one of the best things that they did for me in Germany was they took fluid out of me, and they took out 6 litres. That was over the first time I was there. They took 6 litres out, and that was such a relief. They also gave me the most incredible colonic I've ever had in my life, because what I had was hypothermia, which is when they heat the body up, because cancer can't survive heat, and they combine it with the IPT, which is insulin potentiated chemotherapy, where they fast you the day before in order to lower your blood sugar, and then they give you insulin, and then they give you glucose, so they make the cancer very active, and then they give you the chemo. So the chemo follows on the tail of the glucose, and the cancer cells are gobble, gobble, gobble. They're eating all this sugar, and bang, they've eaten the chemo. So that's how IPT works. And then Germany.
They don't all do that. I've talked to Lodi about this. In some centres, you go on a fast for a couple of days, which shuts your healthy cells down under the hormone sirtuins. And then what you do is you give just insulin with 6 drugs. You give about a 50th of each drug volume, because the insulin, there's 14 receptor sites, 14 times more receptor sites for insulin on a cancer cell than there are on a healthy cell. And the insulin literally creates holes in the cancer cell, and bingo, the drugs go in. If you give sugar, you can wake up the healthy cells. That's the problem.
Okay.
There's a great theory that you shouldn't give sugar, but it doesn't matter.
Okay.
So your ability to use, a 50th of the drugs is because your healthy cells are quiet, and so more drugs get to them. Okay.
So what they did for me was they gave me 10% of the chemo drugs, and I had it twice. I had this procedure twice, and actually for myself, I said I would never have it again, because that just felt too toxic, even though it was a tiny amount of chemotherapy. I came away from that and said, if that's what I have to do to get better, forget it. I'm not doing that again. I'd rather die. I will die. I felt at some point I got to stop struggling to live. If I'm meant to die, maybe I just need to accept it. So I went through a period of time where I also was accepting my death, and somehow that it was the let go of the struggle that actually allowed me to move to the next phase of healing, interestingly, which is when I discovered about Bruce Lipton and the epigenetics, and how your DNA isn't the brain of the cell after all, as they've had always thought, and actually it's more to do with the cell membrane and the vibration that the cell is sitting in. So that kind of fascinated me. And that's when I got into the Psych K stuff, which changes your unconscious mind, and EFT. So it's like a kind of whole new area of healing was opened up with the Psych K, the EFT, and the matrix re-imprinting. And I absolutely see the potential of that for helping kind of whatever you're doing, you know, whether you're doing the drugs, whether you're just doing drugs, whether you're doing the, you know, diet and supplements, and, you know, what combination you're doing.
When you came back from Germany,
on board.
When you came back from Germany, you had the brain tumour. Was there, even after Germany, was there a moment when you thought, that's it, you know, I'm definitely going to die? Or
yeah, well, I went to the Marsden. So when I came back from Germany the second time, that's when I discovered the brain tumours. And they said to me in Germany, you're going to have gamma knife. You're going to have to go home and find a way to have fine pointed radiation, which is gamma knife. Sort the brain tumours out, and then you can come back to us.
Okay. You mentioned Bruce Lipton just now.
Let me just finish. Hang on.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Are we running out of time?
No, not at all. Not at all. I was filling in. You were having your drinks.
I went to the Royal Marsden because I felt that I should have a second opinion. I thought I should go to the best cancer hospital in the UK and get a second opinion. If I haven't done that, I should do that. So I went there, and they gave me a second opinion, which was exactly the same as the first opinion. And that's when I discovered that actually that's what they do. They just back up what the previous oncologist said that's normal. So that's what they tend to do. Anyway, it was at the Royal Marsden that they told me on my second visit that it was palliative care for me only. And that's when they basically said, you're going to die. And then I considered that, well, maybe I will.
You mentioned Bruce Lipton.
Yeah.
Right. Bruce Lipton, for our listeners, is a biologist. He's a biologist, doctor.
Cellular biologist.
He basically brought quantum physics to biology. That's what his real claim to fame is. So he's kind of attacked the cell from both ends. So did you actually read his book, The Biology of Belief? Yes.
And I watched the videos, and it was through watching the videos that he mentioned that I got the Psych-K, heard about Psych-K, and somebody else actually contacted me. So it was another of these coincidences where two people had actually, the person that sent me the Bruce Lipton video also told me about Psych-K, and then a friend locally, my friend Sidika, she contacted me and said, do you know there's a woman called Mary Trenfield who is doing Psych-K in Bristol? I think it could help you. And then she'd also sent me the Bruce Lipton stuff as well. So I thought, okay, there's something here. I need to listen to that.
Psych-K wasn't to do with Bruce Lipton, surely. Psych-K's from a guy called Woollams, isn't it?
Yeah. So Psych-K was developed by Rob Woollams, and Rob Woollams. Bruce Lipton talks about Psych-K. So Bruce Lipton met Rob Woollams at a conference, and they listened to each other speak, and they couldn't believe it, because they had like, oh, hang on, we've got the bit, you know, I've discovered that thought affects the biology, and I discovered how to change that, but they didn't realize, it all fits together. So Bruce went to Rob and had all these sessions, and that's how he got to write The Biology of Belief, because he said, I've always wanted to write a book, but I've got this resistance. Rob Woollams was like, okay, let's sort you out with the Psych-K. So so Bruce Lipton's had a lot of Psych-K. He's really into it.
As I understand it, Bruce Lipton, as you say, it's about epigenetics. Yeah. And at the time he wrote the book, it was kind of almost quackery. But his view is virtually the same as mine, that under the old-fashioned view of cancer and your health is that, you know, inside the cell you've got the DNA, and everything comes outwards from the DNA. The DNA is total brief for the body. Whereas actually we know that's not true. And I mean, cancer research talk about smoking or alcohol or poor diet or lack of exercise poisoning the cells and poisoning the DNA. Well, it's, you know, they would argue that perhaps estrogen did. Well, stress is all about hormones. So there's every reason to believe that stress and emotions, which change your hormones, are going to poison your DNA, literally, physically.
Exactly. Yeah, the DNA, the expression of the DNA is changed in accordance to what cellular environment is around it.
The fascinating thing to me about epigenetics is that the people in the, if you like, the old world, orthodoxy, actually had a conference in the National Institute of Health, I think it was, in 2016. And they still today defined epigenetics as epigenetic changes are stable and heritable, if that's the word. Inheritable, right, that's the word.
Yeah.
And, you know, it just can't be true.
What epigenetics is.
We know they can change. We know that
something that affects the genes.
It makes a difference.
Yeah, you're absolutely right.
Yeah. So okay, let's just start this. So tell me what happens if I come to you and you do Psych K on me.
Okay, well, so normally people come to see me if they want to make a change, and so if they're coming specifically for Psych K, they often already know what they want to change. So we spend a lot of the session going through, you know, what needs to be different in your life and how would you like things to be. And it works with the premise that whatever you believe is true, in the same way that the Henry Ford quote you quoted, whether you believe you can or whether you believe you can't, you're right. And so it's working with the belief. It changes the belief in the unconscious mind, and it does that through kinesiology. So psych is the psyche and K stands for kinesiology. So we're literally reprogramming and rewiring the brain. And for instance, the first session of Psych K that I had, there was 13, I did a core belief balance. So I went to see Mary, and I was in a right state when I went to see her. She said she couldn't tell how old I was. She said I looked about 60, and I was about 40 then. So she said, you looked, you know, she told me later, she says, you know, you looked so old. And that's because I was in a really bad way. She saw me at my worst. So we did this core belief balance, and there's 13 pairs of core beliefs that everybody needs in order to be healthy in mind, body and spirit. And the first pair is the universe is a friendly place. And you want to test strong for that, which using the muscle testing, and you want to test weak for the universe is an unfriendly place. So there's 13 pairs like that. And out of these 13 pairs, I only had 3 intact, and all the rest were off, including I want to die. I tested strong for I want to die and weak for I want to live. So this is like unconscious stuff. We don't necessarily have access to it without doing something. But the Psych K,
these are about beliefs, not about emotions.
About beliefs. It changes the beliefs. Yeah. So and it has. So my first session, where I did my core belief session, as I had these changes, I literally felt like where the tumours were, I sort of felt like they were bubbling. You know, it felt like I could feel it, like sensations being actually changed by what I was doing, by what was happening, and some of it was painful. You know, I felt like there's something going on in my liver, and it actually felt really uncomfortable. And I cried. I had so many tears. I mean, I remember that session. It was very, very strong. I really cried, and I had so much insight and let go. And it's like a lot of stuff was just released, because as the beliefs were shifted, that which had been keeping it in place was released. So the emotions, the stuck emotions were dislodged and were released. So I spent the next sort of 2 weeks just really letting it all free, letting it all go. And then I had 8 sessions, and one of the sessions was spent manifesting a positive scan. That I'd be looking at a positive scan and sharing my good news with everybody, how, you know, that I was better. So I've still got all my Psych K worksheets now, and it's amazing because I can look at them and I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe it. It's almost like it happened to somebody else, you know.
So a lady called Susan Davison asked, was there a defining moment in your healing when you knew you were going to recover, and did that follow a particular therapy? So
yeah,
that's the answer,
I'd say that is it. That it did happen through the Psych K. Yeah, I'd say that allowed me, because I was ready. And so Psych K will only work for somebody if they're really, really ready on that, to make a shift. You have to want to make the shift. It's not going to make the shift for you. Oh, it'll help, it'll enable you to make the shift. But you've got to be really ready for it, So.
It asks you questions. Do you think it asks you questions of yourself all the time?
Sorry, what?
The Psych, when you started off with this imbalance,
yeah,
is the way of fixing it to ask someone questions of themselves to see if you can get them back into balance?
So what we do is, so if somebody comes to me, for instance, and I do work with a lot of health related issues, so they might not believe that they can get better. For example, they might not believe it. They might have been told so clearly that you can't get better by the doctor, that they believe that. So in the Psych K, we go through and say, well, what would you like to believe about your body? And then we come up with some beliefs. So for instance, my body is a self-healing organism. My body is intelligent and it knows how to heal. We might have my immune system is strong and healthy and works joyfully. It's good to bring the word joyfully in whenever we can. I'm getting better every day. I'm feeling healthier. That sort of thing. So they're the beliefs. We brainstorm to start with. We get our beliefs, and then we look at. We muscle test to find out which is going to be the balance, which is going to reprogram that statement in for that person, and it's different for everybody. So, for instance, there's a new direction balance, which is where you sit with your hands over your wrists over each other and your ankles over each other, and you sit and you clasp it like that, and you sit with your eyes closed and you repeat it over and over and over. I guide people through, I give the instructions as we're going along, and I do it with them actually. And then there's another balance called the new resolution balance, where we have to rebalance. It's all about rebalancing the right and the left side of the brain, because when we've got right and left balance, we've got clear overview and we've got connection. So we're actually strengthening that connection between right and left, and we're becoming a whole-brained being, and that allows then the belief to come into play. So so it's fun, actually. It's really fun. I love my work.
I've got a question from America, actually. Laura Eberts. How much of your healing do you think was due to your mind, and how much was due to your other treatments?
So that's a really good question. I'd say I say about 90% is due to mind, because it's only when the mind is on board that your other treatments are going to work. So if you're doing lots of juicing, but you're not feeling it's going to help you, then it's not going to work. So you've got to the mind you've got to have the mind. You've got to know where you're going. You've got to see clearly where you're going. It's a bit like if you are going on a trip, you're going on a trip to the Himalayas, you've got to see yourself. You want to see yourself on top of that mountain, and that you're not going to get on top of the mountain without that visualization. That's where I'm going. What do I need for the journey? And that's the aim and that's the goal. You've got to do the same. You've got to see yourself healthy. You've got to see what you need for the journey. You've got to, but yes, the mind is so important. I want to mention emotions, because emotions gets in the way of mind when we sit on. So emotions is emotion is energy in motion, and that's the word emotion. When we sit on that motion, we don't let that movement happen. That energy goes into the mind and makes us crazy. So we have to find ways to release especially strong emotions like anger, sadness, grief, fear. We've got to find ways to be with these, because they affect the mind in a negative way, and we need the mind to be really clear. We need the mind to be so we need to be the master of our mind, not the mind pulling us around the place.
It seems to me you're talking about two things. It seems to me you're talking about beliefs, and that's psyche,
Yeah.
and emotion.
Yes.
So I've got a great question here from Tisha in Norfolk. She said, did you use only one type of healing modality or a mixture of several to help you beat cancer?
Yeah, that's a really good question. The most important thing that I did was to see myself well. So that was this decision. It was a decision to get well. I'm going to get well. That's just a decision. And then allowing all the things to come to me, which will allow me to get well. So it's like I had to really open up, realize I'm not a disconnected particle in the universe, but I'm actually connected to the unified intelligence that connects all of us. And in the same way that your laptop can either be connected to the internet or not, you can be connected to the internet of unified intelligence or not. And if you are connected, you have answers. You can have access to answers. You know what you need. Things come to you that you need, and you can be a lot more effective and actually the word God, I know a lot of people don't like, and I don't think of God as a he, but for me, God is unified intelligence. Without plugging in and realizing that actually all we have to do is allow our healing. We don't do the healing. That to think we're doing the healing isn't actually accurate. We're allowing it. So our job is to get out of the way. So what's in the way of our healing? That's what needs to be identified. Get out of the way, and then let life energy move through us, because we're conductors of energy. That's what we are.
Yeah, I'm laughing because I probably, you don't even know this, I actually did Reiki. And my wife won't fly with me because I get on a plane and I put myself to sleep. Fantastic. And it always works. It works perfectly. Anyway, I've got a question from Leslie Newton in London. Hi. He said, how did you know when you'd done enough psychological work to heal? Was there a moment when you suddenly felt different?
Yes, well, actually, it's a good question. And there was a time before, initially, it was a point when I thought, I'm so burdened. I've got so much stuff. How am I ever going to really clear it? I had that thought, at some point in my life, probably before the cancer, I'm going to have to carry this stuff forever. This is my fate. And then the cancer allowed me to go, hang on a minute. I want to shift. I want to really release all this stuff. Why do I need to carry it forever? Why do I see that just because I've, had certain experiences, I have to hang on to them? Maybe I don't. So the cancer allowed me to let go or choose to let go, because I had to have a healthy body. I had to free up my electrical circuits of my body to heal, not hang on to emotions. And then at one point I was working with Sasha Allenby, who was doing she was doing EFT and matrix re-imprinting with me, which I love matrix. It's an amazing way of working with the psychological and releasing trauma from the past. I said to her one day, how will I know when I've, I asked that question, do you think I might have done it now? She said, well, let's muscle test. She said, I've got a feeling you might be kind of there. And so we muscle tested it, put my arm out, have I released everything necessary for my full healing to be there, to take place? And it was yes. I was like, oh my God, honestly. Yeah, really, you do. There is a point when
you believe generally you have to do a bit of 3 or 4, do you? You can't just come and do Psych K. You have to do Psych K and EFT and a couple of others, do you?
I mean, they work really well together. The EFT and the Matrix and the Psych K work well together, because the EFT allows you to make friends with the emotions and to feel the emotions and to kind of become embodied, because the reason we get sick is because we have lost the connection with our bodies, and we have to come back into our bodies to heal. So the energy gets stuck up here, and we're stuck in analysis and thought and worry, and we forget we've got these amazing bodies, and we have to bring the energy back to the body. So EFT is one of the things that can really help to re-embody. Matrix helps to clear the emotions, and then the Psych K reprograms. So they fit beautifully together, to be honest.
This is a sort of question from me, really. I remember watching a documentary on television in Britain. I'm not very often in Britain, as you know, but I remember watching this documentary And it was about the mind, and it started with the placebo effect. But what actually happened was, I think it was Harvard, and they did a study where they thought maybe it's not about a placebo pill or anything like that. Maybe it's just the way the doctor tells it. So they actually gave acupuncture to people, seriously.
Yeah.
And they took about 30 people and gave proper acupuncture to those people. But the doctor was not allowed to say the word, and he had to look like Mr. Glum for the full 30 minutes. And the other 30 people, they actually had fake acupuncture. So the needle didn't go in, but they thought it did. I think it was a matchstick or something like this. But he was, hello, Mrs. Jones, how's the dog? How's the cat? How are the kids? And all this sort of thing. Really, really nice and up for it. Guess which lot were better the next day? And I was
the
sitting there.
Matchstick ones.
Yeah, the matchstick people. I was sitting there thinking, this is terrible, because, I do PPs like one most days, and the stories people tell me, it's kind of the same with you. I mean, I'm really sorry, but it's only palliative care now, and you're in real trouble, and we think we can probably give you 18 months if you're lucky, and so on. I mean, the doom that puts into people's brains.
I know.
What you're talking.
It's brainwashing, really. It's like you're.
Absolutely.
There's actually a term for it. It's called the nocebo effect. It's the opposite. It's the opposite to the placebo effect. It actually is telling you something negative, which you will then, become. Unless you consciously. So when I was told, this is what happened to me. When I was told I was going to die, the oncologist. I had my best friend in there. One of my best friends. I got 3. And she and the oncologist came in and said, well, really, really sorry, it's palliative care only for you now. Afraid you've only got a few months. He said, I'm just going to leave you. I just need to go and get something. And I felt he was leaving us to kind of digest the news. And when he walked out the room, me and Sarah looked at each other and we burst out laughing. And we fell, honestly, into complete hysterical laughter. And we couldn't stop laughing. We were like, we both surrendered to it. And we were absolutely, and what happened in that moment was that delivery of that spell that, was meant to land on me and in me, got blasted by the energetic explosion of my system wasn't taking it, and nor was Sarah's. And we were like, forget this, mate. Because if we buy into this stuff, it has power over us. And
absolutely, that's my
seriousness.
Point.
Seriousness is the illusion that keeps seriousness is the glue that keeps the illusion together. So, gotta keep light, gotta keep fun. Whatever happens, don't buy into. And it's the same with the coronavirus. All this stuff. Like, we watch it on the TV. We allow ourselves to get brainwashed by it. Or not, I don't watch it on the TV, and it has absolutely nothing it's all down to the immune system. I think that you covered that, didn't you, last week? Whenever
that was 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
I got a question from Andrea Tellman, which I think a lot of people would want to ask. How can you achieve a positive mind in which you no longer worry about cancer recurrence? So she's obviously clear.
Okay.
And
do you know what? It's normal to worry about. I mean, it's just normal. It's so fear. There's a difference between fear and worry. So when we get the fear of cancer, that's absolutely so normal to happen, because if you've been through cancer, you know what it's like. You're going to get that fear triggered. If you know how to dispel that fear, then it doesn't turn into worry. Worry is unexpressed fear, or unfelt fear. So we have to feel the fear in order to keep ourselves in the body, because fear is in the body, worry is in the mind. So we've got to just keep bringing it back to the body. And EFT is a really, really good way to release fear. You feel, so I'll just explain quickly how to do. Should I just explain quickly how to do EFT, because it's so useful for people?
Yeah. Okay.
So identify. Okay, we could all, anyone watching this could be doing this at the same time. So just feel, where is the fear of cancer? Where do I feel it in my body? Cancer. And you can say the word a few times. Cancer. 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 Okay, so it's quite hard for me to find my fear of cancer because I work with it all the time and I don't honestly have it. Like that used to be the case. But as you're doing it, you can feel, where is this in my body? And often it's here, often it's in the chest. And you describe it to yourself. Yeah, how does it feel? Out of 10, how strong is it? What is a colour? What colour is it? What sensation is it? So once you've identified it, you can then start tapping on it. So that's how you start the EFT. Then you start tapping on the side of the hand. This is called the karate chop point. And you say, even though I have this cancer fear, and it might be in the chest, in the head, or where it's normally in the chest, in my chest, I deeply and completely love and accept myself. And you say that 3 times. That's the setup phrase. And then you tap around this cancer fear, and you're tapping on the ends of the meridian points, which is in the Chinese use meridians, and we're actually tapping on the ends of those meridians. And you say, this cancer fear, this cancer fear, this cancer fear in my chest, I choose to let it go. And then down the side of the body, I choose to let it go. Choose to let it go. I'm letting it go. Now it sounds almost too simple, but when you've done 1 round, you can check in, has it gone down? And normally it's come down 2 or 3. You then can do another round. So you then identify, okay, is it still in the chest? Has it changed colour? Has anything changed about it? Sometimes things change to sadness, they might become sadness. And then we start to get, even though I have this sadness, we can then tap on sadness. So that's how we work with emotions. We sort of chase them. But so for this person who's worried about the fear, has the fear of it coming back, I would recommend you do some tapping every day, that the fear's there, maybe 2 or 3 times a day. It only takes a few minutes. Sometimes I do it when I'm walking the dog. I'm just walking through the woods and I'm tapping away like a nutter, even though I'm whatever. And sometimes I really cry as well. There's one thing that I've really learned from having the cancer is that natural is key. It's being natural that heals you. At the end of the day, it's the suppression.
It's cry. It's cry.
Yeah, I let myself cry.
Right.
Let myself cry. Let myself do anything. I let myself scream and shout if I need to. Sometimes I do it into a cushion so I don't alarm people. But it's all about the nature, reconnecting with the nature. So yeah, it's a really good thing to do when you're walking along. And I would say if you haven't got, you have a look online. There's a resource called emofree.com, and you can download a free manual. And you can do EFT for yourself. You can find YouTubes. There's the tapping solution. There's an app. There's all sorts of ways you can do it. But it's really nice to work with a practitioner. I really highly recommend working with a practitioner. And I love it. I love working with people myself. And because the practitioner will tune into it. So, depending on the practitioner. But I tune into people's stuff as they're, because I'm a very emotional person. So I really relate to emotions. And we release the emotions through tapping, and it's
Okay. I've got a question from Agnes Rose in Carolina, which I'm sure applies to the majority of people. Do you think this all works better if you haven't had chemo and radiotherapy?
Okay, so it means that's what I would say is that I think that you need to, whatever you're doing, you need to work with the mind. That's what I would say. You need to be, if you're doing chemotherapy, you need to believe that that is medicine for you. And if you can't get on board with believing it's medicine, you shouldn't be doing it, basically. So it has to feel like this is going to do me good. Otherwise, why are you doing it?
Yeah.
And the EFT could help you get more on board with that. So, you could actually tap on it, choosing to allow this chemo to heal me. You know, we can tap on all sorts of things as like affirmations. We could do some Psych K to make the chemo, you know, more effective. But bottom line is, you need to believe it's the right thing, or it's not going to work. Okay.
I've got another question from here, this time from Bob Heath. He was a carer for his wife, who I think it's fair to say, I don't think you mind me saying this, but back in 2011, I think when I met them, she was sort of grade 4 ovarian stage 4, and she was given it, you know, 3 months sort of thing. And he was obviously the carer. So he said, you know, many practitioners believe having the right attitude and emotions are crucial to beating cancer. It doesn't matter if it's Ayurveda or practitioners in general. He said, not all cancer patients want to or seem able to believe it. Can you change that patient's mind?
So you can't, no one can change anyone's mind unless they want it to be changed. So somebody might come to me and they might say, I really want to believe in my healing, and there's some, you know.
Yeah, I understand it. Yeah.
I can help people. I can help to support people's belief in themselves. Yeah. I'm not here to convince people. I only work with people who believe I can help them, actually. Otherwise, why are they coming to me?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. All right, question from Rose in San Diego. I've got a lot of people there. What part, if any, does, in fact, it's 2 questions. What part, if any, does imagination or even hypnotherapy have to play in recovery?
Okay. We'll start with the hypnotherapy. I guess the hypnotherapy works in a similar way to maybe how Psych K would work, but I don't know, because I've not had, it hasn't been my way really, hypnotherapy. So I'm not really, I know it works with the unconscious mind, and it's somebody gives you a session. Imagination is your own tool. It's like something that you've got, and it's your most powerful tool when it comes to healing, because if you can imagine yourself really healthy and living a fantastic life that you love, then you've got something to live for, you know, something worth, you've got to make it worth getting better for. And you've got to also think, what am I going to do with this life when I get better? So for me, I imagined myself sharing my healing story. I imagined myself standing up, you know, on a stage, sharing it with people and inspiring people. And I thought to myself, you know, if I could do that, that felt so exciting. That would be worth getting better for, you know. So maybe all this suffering won't be for nothing, because it will actually be, I'll be able to share and help other people. So that imagination of me doing that was really, really powerful. And also, I used visualizations for my tumours. I imagined that my tumours, especially my ovary, my ovary tumour, I imagined that I was holding it with hands, like warm hands, and the tumour was made of ice, and that I was just melting it. It's like I had hands inside my tummy and I was just holding it. And then I'd imagined that I had like a suction pipe to take, because I was like, where will all the fluid go? And actually, that was the problem. That's what they helped me with in Germany, was to get rid of the fluid. But in my imagination, I'm sucking it out, you know. So it's, you have to, and then the angels taking it away, you know.
The angels take it away.
Yeah, angels. Yeah, let the angels.
Yeah, no, I always remember them doing on the morning TV. It was actually a patient of mine, and it's a long time ago. And he used to look at people. And I think it was Eamon Holmes, and he took a picture of Eamon Holmes, and there was a blur on his shoulder and on top of it. And Eamon Holmes actually said to him, what's this? They were talking about his personality and his aura and everything else. And the guy actually said, it's your guardian angel. And Eamon Holmes nearly fell off the couch. I always remember. Yeah, it was amazing. Absolutely.
Yeah. We do have angels. We do. We have angels. And also, I believe in fairies as well. I had a fairy healing one night.
It seems to me there's a big difference between beliefs and emotions, and emotions like anger and love, for example. So how do you deal with those two? Anger, love.
How do you deal with anger and love? Well, you don't have to deal with love, because love's easy. Love's love, we all want love. So
do you try to put anger and fear into love?
How do you transform fear and anger? Well, that's what we're doing, because when we're bringing, so that the whole point of healing really is that we're developing compassion for ourselves and for others, and that is the point. That is the only point. You're
trying to get people to love themselves, actually. Sure.
Well, yeah, we're all bringing that to ourselves. That's the aim of the game, is self-love. So it's like, yeah, when we're so the whole point really is to can I love myself? So I was quite interested that when I got diagnosed with cancer, I felt almost like I kind of felt like shamed. I felt ashamed of having cancer. And then I thought, isn't that awful and weird and strange that I feel almost like there's something like I don't want people to know that I've got cancer. Like it's something to be ashamed of. And I thought that's quite interesting. So it showed me something about it that I had to learn to love this person who's got cancer. And this is all part of healing. And also it shocked me a bit, because I thought, if I'm so ashamed of having cancer, I must have a judgment about cancer or people with cancer. And so it was kind of interesting. The whole thing was like an exploration, and learning to love myself was the whole point of the cancer, really. The whole point of allowing myself to be who I am, because if you truly love yourself, you can allow yourself to be how you are, in all of your weirdness, your strange bits. And
yeah, I find that really, really interesting point, because I always remember one of the biggest moments for me, which I dealt with, I hope, was Catherine, who was sort of lying in a hospice bed, and she turned to me and said, "I'm really sorry about this, Dad." It was like, "You're sorry? What do you mean you're sorry about it? We love you, Catherine, and we really wish you didn't have it. You don't have to be sorry to me that you've got cancer at all." And I spent the next 10 minutes trying to, do things for her. In fact, when she went into a coma, her boyfriend came in, he was wonderful. And he caught me doing Reiki on her. And I actually did Reiki on her. She'd been in a coma for about 10 days and I woke her up. I don't know if it was a good thing or a bad thing. I don't know. But she woke up enough to say hi, Dad, talk to him and whatever, then went back again. It was an incredible moment.
So beautiful.
I've got one question from a sort of from earlier moment, but I think it's a nice question from Dr. Robert Jones. He said, "You're a mum, let's say. Would you choose Gerson for your daughter, for your own daughter?" Doctors often get asked, would they give chemo to themselves? Or
definitely.
Would you give Gerson to your daughter?
Oh God, yeah. I would do whatever was needed, basically. And the thing is, if you've got cancer, it's a state of it's a state of toxicity. Your body is not dealing with toxins well, and your body is crying out for nutrition and to release these toxins. So that's what you have to. So that's what Gerson does. It releases toxins through the juice and the coffee enemas. So yeah.
Fiona Shakeela Burns, she's beaten terminal cancer twice. What's the one big thing you've learned in all of this that you can pass on to people?
Okay, I'd say the most important thing that I've learned is that we are here for joy. We're here to have fun, and we're here for joy. And if we're not having enough fun, we're not having enough joy, we will find a way back to source. In order to stay alive, you have to have a lot of fun.
Okay, good, wonderful. We were all for that. So, for all those people listening, if they want to have joy and fun with you, give us your details.
Well, that sounds a bit strange, Chris.
You led into it, not me. No, if they want to be treated, if they want some Psych K and EFT and all these other things, how would they get hold?
I'm also a medical herbalist as well.
Oh yes.
Yeah.
We left that bit behind.
We didn't even talk about the herbs, did we really? But anyway, okay. So they go www.natureworks, which is WORX.com. Natureworks.com.
Okay.
And if people go on that website, they can contact me. They can just do a contact form and send me an email that way. It's probably the easiest thing to do. I'm in Bristol. I work on Zoom. And yeah.
Okay, thank you. So natureworks.com.
With an X.
Yeah, with an X.
And I've got my Facebook group as well, which is Cancer You Can, which is
brilliant. Absolutely brilliant Facebook group. I think you were the leader in all that, weren't you, in the UK by miles? You were probably one of the first Facebook groups I ever noticed.
I think it was one of the early ones. Yes, it was. We've been going since 2014. It's a very friendly group.
I said I try and chip in every now and again.
Good. No, you're nice when you do. Yeah, we've got some great.
So, all right, I'd like, on behalf of everybody listening, I'd like to thank you for playing with us today and telling us everything that we didn't know before.
Thank you so
but
much.
it's really good. I enjoyed it.
I enjoyed it too. Thank you.
It's my pleasure. I'd just like to thank everybody for listening. We are going to try and do one on the second Sunday next month. It may well be someone like Jane McClellan talking about off-label drugs. And to me, much the same way, I'll chip in on that too. So I look forward to seeing everybody again, and I'll see you soon, Fiona. It's really nice having you.
Thank you so much, Chris. It's really nice to see you.
Okay, bye.
Thank you.